Hi there. Welcome back to the Land Whisperer channel. My name is Chris. I'm a writer of short stories and I'm a spiritual land worker. Now, last week we finished up on the psychic information that I got from the Stanton Drew stones about the extraterrestrials helping in building the monument. And this week I told you that I would explain to you how my spiritual journey changed and how it went from weird to nuts. I decided that I'd take a bit of time off from the psychic information, and I lined up two talks that I gave. After the second one, both of them went well, but after the second one, the leader of the group there decided that she would like to invite me to meet a senior lady, a friend of hers, and discuss some spiritual work further. And I said, yes, of course, no problem. So a week later, I find myself in a very strange situation. This lady, and I've written it down here as I describe her as a high-frequency resonant medium. She's had many previous lifetimes working with higher intelligences and higher beings and helping humanity with the messages that they would give to her. Her current lifetime is, her work is still exactly the same, except she's reframing some of the work that she did in the past to help people now as the energies change. She also has another remarkable gift. She has the capacity to be able to see higher beings. That's great. I wish I had that skill, but I really don't. And it's really frustrating sometimes when I can feel these higher intelligences, but I can't actually see them. But never mind, we're all different and we all have gifts in a different manner for good reason. So when I got there, she was already talking to these higher intelligences. So I sat down on her settee and just watched her conversations as she was talking to them. She, from my perspective, all I could see was her talking to the wall. And I questioned my own sanity, whether I'd come to the right place and whether I'd gone mad. Was she okay? Well, of course she was. And it took a little while, but she finished her conversations with them and then turned to me to tell me why she'd asked me to come here. She said that in a small team that would be formed that day, that I would need to help bring in higher levels of Christed energy, the highest level of beauty and light, into the planet at this time in order to make it rise. I had been chosen, amongst others, by those higher beings that she was talking to, and the work that had to be done would have to have been done under a dark moon, i.e. in the night time, near the winter solstice, which obviously that year was December 2024, and at Stanton Drew. So immediately I understood why I'd been asked because of my previous work at Stanton Drew. There were going to be a team of 5 of us. I was one of them, but I was chosen amongst many others across the whole globe at this time in order to help bring in this energy. But ours was the local area at Stanton Drew that needed to be looked at. We also were going to bring in another race, a 13th race, a race of higher beings from beyond the veil. And they would help later on when they'd adjusted to Earth's atmosphere and to the gravity. They would help anchor those Christed energies into the deeper waters of the world. She told me that I would be given 12 energetic crystals at the end of the session, but before any of the work that she'd just described had to be done, I had to find an ancient line of earth and water and sky energy, and it was called the Merlin Line. To assist me, once more, a race of higher intelligences and higher beings called the Syrians, and I'm sure some of you will know about those particular beings. Obviously, they reside in Sirius Alpha and Sirius Beta in the Dog Star, up there in the night sky. And these beings would help me find the Merlin Line through a range of meditations. This lady also told me that I would have to find dark circles on the line. Now, these dark circles were kind of places of wisdom, repositories of knowledge of land, sky and air and water energies that hold information from our past and our future in the landscape. I would have to visit them. Not all of them would be stone circles, not all of them would be on the surface. Some of them might be in caves, others might be a ring of trees. But then she turned to me and said, in order to understand why you have been chosen on a deeper level, you need to be shown a vision. So she asked me to stand up in her living room. She put her hand on my chest and then brought in a being that had been standing there in the side, patiently waiting to come into her. Because she's a medium, she can support other spirits into her. This particular being was Yeshua, or Jesus. And I was having a conversation with Jesus through her. He told me to close my eyes, so dutifully I did. And in that vision, I began to see a darkened alleyway. It was between houses, and I was walking along it. And at the end, there was a street, and it was bathed in sunlight. It was really, really bright, and it looked as though the place was a place of a hot environment, or a Middle East, or somewhere like that. And when I was approaching the end of that little alleyway, I turned back and looked at a woman who was following me. In that moment, I felt intuitively that that woman was Mary Magdalene. And having made that identification, I felt that I was Matthew, the disciple. We walked slowly to the end of the alleyway and looked into the street. Coming up from the other side was Jesus bearing his cross on his shoulder, and behind them were Roman soldiers mounted on their horses. Our plan was to push the cross off Jesus and take him back down the alleyway when he came up level with us. But as he did so, my courage failed. Now, over the next 2,000 years, I had many, many lifetimes where I came back to try and examine and rid myself of the guilt that I felt for not having the courage to go through and rescue Jesus at that time. The reason why I was about to do this work at Stanton Drew at the winter solstice in 2024 was because I would be ridding myself of all my karma and ridding myself forever of the guilt that I had held for 2,000 years in previous lifetimes. So in this lifetime, I was finally going to be free. Opening up my eyes, Yeshua asked me, would I want to do this work? And intuitively, I knew I could not say no. And so, of course, I said yes to him. When he left the woman, the medium, she then activated my body with the energies that I would need in order to see the job through. She also fixed into me a communication array that I would able to speak to a new guide. This new guide was a Syrian. Now, he'd already had a lifetime on earth previously where he was a physician and a companion to St. Paul. He'd also written a gospel. His name then was Luke. So Luke was my new spirit guide for this journey. It's quite incredible, I know, but in the moment, I went with it. At the end of the meeting, this lady gave me a box of, invisible to me, 12 energetic crystals that I had to take to Stanton Drew in order to complete the work and to find the Merlin Line. Well, I think you can imagine now, having me told you that strange story, where I'd never had that kind of experience before. I thought I'd lost it. I thought I didn't know that it was real. I couldn't think straight. I didn't know what to do with that type of information. But after a couple of days of sitting with it and having realized, of course, that I'd already given my word to Yeshua that I would do the work, I decided I would go for it. So I sat down and had a meditation with Luke, my new guide, and he showed me a new vision. He showed me the fact that I would need to go to 12 physical locations on this Merlin line. He didn't tell me immediately where they were, but that at each of those locations, I'd have to sing a note, a tone, a specific one for that location, and I'd need to sing 12 of them. And each of those notes will reside on the pentatonic scale of middle C. So with my trusty note blower, which I had from singing days, I basically, I'll blow the note of the first location, middle C. And I would have to sing that note for one reason and one reason only at that location. It was to resonate with a physical artifact that I had to find using that note and bring it back to Stanton Drew to bring in the crisis energy at the winter solstice time. Well, through a series of researches and meditations over the next week or 10 days, I found the 12 locations that were residing on the Merlin line that I would have to go to. And on the pilgrimage, which I'm about to start, I'll show you each of those places. But next week, as I start the pilgrimage, I'm going to bring you to a really lovely ancient monument that not many people know about as our first stop on the journey. And that's in the Avalon Marshes just outside of Glastonbury. And it's called the Sweet Track. In the meantime, if you've got any questions or comments, please leave them in the section below and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can do. And I will see you very soon. Bye for now.